Good afternoon, young friends. I hope you had some good time with your parents now during these holidays after the examination. Hope you are all safe and hope you are all doing well at home. And I'm very sure, though this is an adversity, the advantage is that you have a longer time with your parents, with your family. You may not get such an opportunity again in life, you know. In fact, perhaps you must have got a longer time after your +2 till you joined engineering, and after that, this is unfortunately you have got it, but still it is good that you have been with your parents. It is nice that you should really enjoy that, but at the same time we miss you here. In fact, the whole campus is empty without you people, and I used to see you people walking, and I used to see you people getting into hurrying into the classroom. If the class is at 9 o'clock, the larger crowd used to be at 9:05 and 9:10 hurrying into the classroom. And similarly, in the afternoon, after 5 minutes, people used to run to the classroom. So I used to see all those. I really miss all of that. So this semester, I shall be offering this course on topics in graph theory. Now, before we start off the course today, let us uh, uh, let us decide the game rules of the game now of this entire semester. Number one, this semester, particularly this course, will definitely go on web itself. It will be online only. Number two, even if you come over here, I shall try to keep it online so that you can listen to my lectures from your hostel rooms itself. Number one. Number two, I have decided that this should be in the continuous assessment mode. So it is continuous learning and continuous assessment. Dr. Javed will be supporting me in monitoring all the logistics, and Mr. Sanjay Sonbhadra will be coordinating with all your assignments. So what the course structure is approximately like this. When I start teaching, I shall start also giving you some interesting assignments. Now you will get at least 10 days to work on the assignment. I understand you are about 46 in number, isn't it? The 46 in number. And I want these 46 people to be put into about 12 groups. About 12 groups. So each group will have 4 members, isn't it? 3 or 4 members. 3 or 4 members. So each group will have 3 or 4 members. All these things will be looked after by Dr. Javed and Dr. Sonbhadra. Only one point is, you cannot make your teams. The team shall be decided by random lottery. Random. So your team members in each team shall be decided by some random choice, and that team more or less will continue till the end of the till the end of the semester. The same team will continue. Now each team will have to solve only one assignment for a duration of about 10 days. So let us call it as one cycle. One cycle consists of the following. Number one, my lecture. Number two, my lecture continues successively until I have listed about 12 assignments, because there are 12 batches. So there shall be 12. Now, one assignment each shall be distributed to every batch. This distribution will be coordinated again by Dr. Javed and Mr. Sanjay. They will normally assign these jobs again on a lottery basis. Therefore, no team shall be favored by a very specific assignment. Sometimes in some cycle, I may give a very challenging assignment, and that challenging assignment can be bid by any team. So that team which bids for the challenging assignment would definitely take up that. That is the advantage that we give. And also one advantage is 1% of marks may be given as bonus if that team has successfully completed that challenging assignment. So that will be one attraction if a challenging assignment is given by me en route. So one cycle is approximately about 2 weeks. Number one, first is my lecture. Then about 10 days you would solve the problem. And in the last 2 days, you would be presenting the work that whatever you have done. Now I shall come to this point. When a problem is given, you should build up a solution model. You should develop a model to solve the problem. So this development of the model, definitely I know that I also advise you that you should definitely search a lot of material, and you can definitely utilize some good algorithms which are available. However, if you are utilizing that algorithm, it should not be plagiarized, it should not be copied, it should be cited, and you should also give the reasons, justify the reasons why your team decided to work on this particular algorithm rather than any other algorithm. Therefore, if you get some 2 or 3 alternative algorithms, you should also provide a justification why you wanted to choose this particular algorithm to solve this particular problem. That is perfectly welcome. So you have got to cite and you have got to acknowledge the source properly, and your choice should be justified. So you should, after completing the work, you should write a report. And this report, definitely Dr. Javed, that today or on some other day, he will take half an hour and he will let you know how the report has got to be written. It must be written in IEEE format. It should be written in IEEE format. So there should be a proper title. I will give a problem, but I will not give the statement of the problem. I will just give you a very abstract problem, and you should convert it into the statement of the problem. So there must be a statement for the paper, the title of the paper. Then you should write an abstract. Then you should write the keywords. Then there must be an introduction. This introduction should be a very strong introduction, which shows that we have done good literature survey in solving that particular problem. And then obviously the model, or if you are at a very advanced level, therefore I expect that some novelty could be shown by you in developing the model. Then you have got to show a hand simulation, one section on hand simulation, which is on a very simple graph. You would illustrate how that particular model would work. So you have got to display how that model would work. Next section would consist of experimental implementation on a large scale. What do I mean by large scale? Large scale, I mean that you will start with a graph of, let us say, some 5 vertices, then you will choose a graph of 10 vertices, 20 vertices, 25 vertices, 30 vertices, 35 vertices, so that you should be able to draw the profile curves also towards the end. It could be either depending upon the number of vertices in the graph or depending upon the number of edges. So the complexity should go on increasing with the number of vertices, and also should go on increasing with the number of edges, and you should profile it for either for the accuracy of the answer or for the time taken by the algorithm, or in certain cases it could be the amount of memory indented by the algorithm. So all these profile graphs have got to be presented. That is where I am giving you 10 days to work out, and also I am giving you only one problem, and only this one problem by 4 of you. But only difference is, unfortunately, because of pandemic, all 4 of you will not be sitting together, And this is what is exactly going to happen in your real life also, that all four partners could be in four different corners, and still how on internet you would coordinate and solve the problem is more important. All right. So this is what you are going to do. Now let me come to the evaluation part or the assessment part of your work. Naturally, your report will be assessed. Whatever the marks that you get for the report shall be equal for all the four members. So although we may know that one of you might not have put your best effort, but still benefit of doubt is that all four members shall get equal marks as far as the report is concerned, because the report is supposed to have been jointly authored by all your four partners. So it will be, let us say it will be evaluated for about 10 marks. All right. So one assignment, the report part of it, which is printed in the IEEE format, which is, you need not submit any hard copy. It will all be soft copy, and this soft copy will be evaluated. And if some corrections are suggested, some editing is suggested, you will resubmit it after editings are incorporated. But this evaluation is before editing, because the first submission shall be evaluated, which will be for 10 marks. Then you will prepare again jointly, you will prepare a PPT slides, just for every assignment, not more than 6 to 8 slides will be prepared. Let us say at most maximum 10 slides for one assignment, not more than 10 slides. And now in these 10 slides, different components will be dealt by different participants. All right. So all four of you would be speaking, and audio clipping will also be sent. So you will do audio, you will also make an oration, and you can distribute which two slides will be spoken by whom, which two slides will be spoken by whom. That will be your choice. Okay. So the entire presentation shall be made, and the timing is about 8 minutes. Within 8 minutes, all four of you should cover it. In other words, each one of you will get about 2 minutes of presentation. Okay. So this both PPT, the video, plus your audio, video combined with the audio will be edited, and that's definitely a wonderful skill that you would be picking up. Okay. And you would be sending this. So this is also going to be evaluated. Now, in this evaluation, surely you can see that PPT part, whatever the marks you get for the PPT part will be common to all the four friends. However, the presentation, 2 minutes presentation, shall definitely show the individual ability, individual characteristic ability shall get displayed. Is it all right? Now, after listening to this, our team of TAs will send you some queries. All right. These queries have got to be independently replied by every one of you, by four of you, or the queries could be directed to the specific person in the team. Mr. X1, please answer these questions. Mr. X2, please answer these questions. Mr. X3, please answer these questions. So perhaps they would give you about 8 hours time or 10 hours time to reply to these queries. So now the reply to these queries will also be evaluated. Is it all right? Now, the last part is demonstration of your algorithm, working of your algorithm, which has got to be done online by you. All right. So Dr. Javed and Mr. Sonbhadra will definitely give you some time, because different TAs are there. This can happen concurrently. This will definitely happen concurrently. So one assignment will be evaluated for not less than 30 marks. Let us say first 10 marks for your report, second 10 marks for your PPT, and another 10 marks for your presentation and questionnaire, and demonstration of your experiment. So they would distribute about 30 to 40 marks per assignment. So this completes one cycle. So we will let us take 2 full weeks for completing one cycle. Therefore, in a month, 2 cycles should get completed. Is it all right? 2 cycles will get completed. So now there shall not be any examination, particularly the mid examination or whatever it is. However, I might conduct a review test, right? This review test will not have a common question paper. I will set different questions and Dr. Javed will decide to transmit these questions randomly to each one of you, and you have got to answer these questions. Of course, he might give you, let us say, 2 hours time or 3 hours time or whatever it is, and then all that you have got to do is you just reflect back the answers, in whatever they form. You can write it by hand and then take a photograph of that and then send it in whatever the form you like to do. You do it. Okay, so that's how it is going to happen. And then the same thing would happen after the first part of the semester. Second part of the semester will continue in this way. So I would like to, if possible, we would like to have as many as 8 cycles, because every month shall have 2 cycles and 4 months 8 cycles. But then if 8 cycles cannot be possible, we should at least aim to complete the 7 cycles. 6 to 7 cycles is a must. All right, this is how the whole course will be distributed. Now the coverage of the course will be, we will start with some introduction to graph theory, the conventional introduction to graph theory, and then I will be more particular here to think very creatively on different possibilities of graph representation. I would give very interesting assignments to each one of you. Surely you can borrow the material from whatever the source you like to. You could discuss with anybody you like, provided if your parents are also computer science people, surely you can discuss with them. If your elder brother is from computer science, surely you can always discuss with him. You can discuss with your seniors, absolutely no problem. But the point that I would emphasize is that you are going to learn the course and the assessment is purely upon whatever you have learned. And surely in this method, no memory is tested, because I do not have closed classroom tests conducted. Even had you been in the campus, I would not have possibly conducted such type of tests. I don't believe in that. I want a very, very proactive learning to happen, and you should be able to learn. So obviously, there is nothing like preparation for the examination, preparation for the mid-semester examination or end-semester examination. There is nothing like that. All your learning is continuous, because every assignment shall be done by you. The most interesting part is entire class should be interested in those assignments which they have not solved. So if there are 12 batches, you have solved only one assignment, and you should definitely collect the results of the 11 assignments from your peers, from your classmates, all other 11 assignments. How did they do it? How did they solve it? Okay, that is very necessary. Therefore, whenever they are presenting or showing the practical implementation, it is better you should also join online to find out how they have done it, or you collect all that whatever they have done. That is really going to be the material for you for lifelong. You will definitely see that the utility of this when you start really working in your companies, that, oh yeah, my friend had solved this, a prototype is available there, let me check, how did he solve that? That is where it is going to help you. So this is how we take up the entire course. I'm sure this is very, very clear to every one of you. Therefore, you will be on your feet right from day number 1. Right from very this day, you will be on your feet, because the 12 assignments, normally I would give about 12 assignments over a teaching of about 2 hours. All right. So with this, we shall start our graph theory. The approximate syllabus would be as follows. You can note down the syllabus. Number one, the introduction to graph theory, ending up to graph representation, or ending up to discovering the data structures. Then we will we will next move on to the connectivity in graphs, connectivity, disconnectivity, various types of connectivities, various types of traversal in graph. That will be another major chapter or major cycle. Then the most interesting cycles will be trees, graph trees, and then graph cut sets, graph trees and graph cut sets, graph separations, etc. Okay. Then plenarity, we will take up plenarity. And depending upon the time availability, we shall take up one more advanced unit called, advanced chapter called chromaticity in the graph, or graph chromaticity, graph coloring. Okay, so these are all. So we totally end up planning about 7 cycles, 8 cycles ideally. If 8 cycles are not possible, at least we should aim at completing 7 cycles. Is the point clear, Dr. Sonbhadra? You have noted down all these particular points. Okay, now we shall start. So now what the first part is, I definitely would love to emphasize on coding vis-a-vis designing an algorithm. So in this institution particularly, all of you are very, very focused towards coding. Coding happens. Coding has got to happen. But what is more important is designing an algorithm. That is the intellectual part of it. That is the part where intelligence is really required. Today you might be seeing, and you have already seen the new education policy. In the new education policy, it is expected that coding will be taught right from 6th standard. If coding is going to be taught right from 6th standard, then what is your role as coders? You just imagine that. And in the next 10 years or next 5 years to 10 years, the machines themselves will become so intelligent that they will do the coding, provided you just give the algorithm. Even if the algorithm is given in the drawing form, or even if the algorithm is given in any skeleton form, and they are expecting that even if the method of solving the problem is spoken to the machine and kept in a voice file, speech file, even that could be converted into a code by a machine. So if that is going to be done, then why do I require a BTech graduate or an MTech graduate to do the coding? Therefore, the days of coding by graduate engineers soon will be coming to an end. Definitely. And in your lifetime, you will surely see that this is going to be a big transition. Those who depend only on coding as their life or as their plan, professional plan, then definitely they will land into a very big problem, because coding is not what is going to happen, but solving a problem is what is going to happen, which definitely requires the domain knowledge and designing an algorithm. So you have got to design an algorithm. You already done a course on algorithm design. So what's going to happen in algorithm design? Naturally, the very first problem is how to solve a problem. That is more important. And then this is followed with first you solve the problem somehow. How to solve a problem? Solve the problem somehow. Then comes the next question, how to efficiently solve the problem. How can that be an efficacious solution? So the efficacy of the solution already as understood in your algorithms classes could be in terms of time efficiency, could be in terms of accuracy efficiency, or could be in terms of memory efficiency. So accuracy efficiency comes into picture only when the accuracy of the solution is of utmost importance. For example, if you want to solve f of x equal to 0, then the accurate value of px, accurate value of the root is more important. You don't mind sparing one more iteration or two more iterations or 10 more iterations. You don't mind giving extra time, but you want very accurate answers. So that is efficiency in accuracy. Sometimes you want the on real-time solution. You want a quick solution. So the time efficiency is more important. And in spite of lot of memory available, when you are processing a huge video or when you are processing a very big image, then memory efficiency still is very necessary. Now with big data analytics, memory efficiency still is a problem now. It's still a problem. Okay. So how to efficaciously solve a problem comes as a next question. Naturally then is analysis and design. So if algorithm is ready, you should analyze its performance, and by analyzing the performance, you should be able to redesign the algorithm. Well then, I have focused on all these 3 points. I have repeated, and I'm sure you have heard and you have already internalized all the details. But what is very important is it warrants the creation of right data structure. So the analysis of how to solve the problem will end up in designing the type of data structures that you require to solve the problem. So now, what do these data structures imply? So conceiving suitable data structures and conceiving the way to solve the problem and then conceiving the way to solve the problem. Look here, this is a very interesting thing. First, you will approximately conceive the way to solve the problem. When you approximately conceive, when you approximately think of a procedure to solve the problem, then you will start thinking of what should be the data structures. When you have started thinking of the data structures, then you reconceive the algorithm more effectively because data structure is ready. All right. So this is very first step, and this requires naturally understanding or analysis of the problem. So when you after this, see, now I'm making a slight twist from whatever you have learned. Then you will start visualizing the relationship amongst different variables associated. They can be input variables, or they can be the intermediate variables that you have introduced, or they can be the output variables that you would. So they are all parameters, different types of parameters. Some parameters could be constants, some parameters could be variables, some parameters could take different values at different instants of time when the execution is in the process. All of them is an automata, you know that. Then what now, as a senior engineer, what you have got to do is visualize the relationship amongst the different variables associated. This relationship is the starting point of visualizing the presence of a graph while solving a problem. So graph acts as a tool to visualize how the problem has got to be solved. Graph does not become an algorithm. Graph is an intermediate stage which realizes the design of a very good algorithm, because through the graph, through the graph representation, you would be able to visualize all the relationships between the different variables. That is where graph theory will be useful. So now with the relations being identified, what are you going to do? So it gives you the ability to perform the logical imagination and picturize or visualize the interdependencies amongst variables and the processes. See, there are variables and there are processes. Now, you have already heard in your software engineering class and earlier in your programming classes that there used to be 2 types of graph representation. One, you called it as a conventional flowchart. Another, you called it as data flow diagrams. So data flow diagrams will speak about the interdependencies amongst variables, amongst the data. Whereas conventional flowchart will speak about the interdependencies amongst the processes. All right, no doubt you are going to draw other type of picture where both of them could be involved, and you are going to identify the interdependencies. So essentially, when a problem is given, a huge problem is given, a practical problem is given to you are going to end up doing this logical imagination, and your job is obviously to picturize or visualize the interdependencies. This is the major step in analyzing the problem. This is the major step in towards designing an algorithm. It is not coding. Coding happens, right? That's very interesting. Okay, and therefore extracting a mapping function, again transformation function. So this mapping function, what does the mapping function do? Mapping function maps some variables into some other variables. So some variables are transformed into some other variables. So this mapping function or the transformation function is the algorithm. So mathematically or engineering wise, an algorithm is just a transformation function, is just a mapping function. So this mapping function or the transformation function has got to be conceived. This mapping or transformation is because of understanding the interdependencies. Interdependencies is just the relationship, and all these relationships can be conveniently understood if you can picturize it through a graph, because graph is an abstract set of relationships. That's all. What is a graph? Graph is just an abstract expression of all the relationships, all different possible relationships. That is all. The relationship could be between the two processes, or the relationship between can be between the two variables. And at a time, relationship is spoken between two variables, but overall there shall be multiple relationships, and that's what you are going to visualize. Okay. This definitely forms the essence of computing science and engineering. That is all. There is nothing much about it. Okay. All right. So graph provides both abstraction of mathematics. You have seen that in the previous slide. I have introduced the abstraction of mathematics, that algorithm is only a transformation function. I have already told that algorithm is only a mapping function. Now graph has the ability to provide the abstraction of this mathematics. Graph also has the ability to provide you the diagrammic visualization of all the relationships. So it can do both the things. And that is why graph as an intermediate stage is very necessary. That is why graph is a very compulsory course for every research scholar. Graph is a very compulsory course for every software engineer at advanced level. Okay, we will now understand stage by stage. Okay, hence it acts as an effective in between medium. I'm telling you, graph does not become an algorithm, and graph is not the starting point. Neither it is the starting point nor is the ending point. Graph does not is not an algorithm straight away, is not a code straight away, but then it is an effective in between medium, an analytica. Now the challenging question, not as an assignment but perhaps as a project work for you, or even later those who would like to do research can take it up. If I do some graph, if I just generate some graphs about solving the problem, and if I scan those graph diagrams, can the machine construct an algorithm? Can the machine later construct a code automatically from whatever the graphs that I have scribbled? That's a very interesting research problem, because the graph is a diagrammic representation of the mathematics, and without mathematics, only on the graph, with some scribbling done on the graph on your page, and if you scan it, it should automatically become an algorithm, and later it should even become a code. That's an interesting machine learning problem. Okay, hence acts as an effective in-between medium or an analytica. helping to realize what does it do. The whole graph helps to realize the synthesis of both data structure and algorithm. That is what is the problem solving. That's what is, whether it is compiler, whether it is network programming, whether it is operating system, call by whatever the name, call with whatever the application that you have got in mind. Okay, whether it is video surveillance problem, tracking problem, call it by whatever the problem. Ultimately, this is all the whole thing is, it has got to be data structure and it has got to be algorithm. So it is a solution to the problem. So coding happens, it is a consequence, it just is a consequence. Okay, so can coding be automated? I'm sure some of you should try it if possible, as some assignment somewhere. Can coding be automated? If coding could be automated, coding is automated already in several cases. Now they are thinking of machine learning as a medium where machine itself intelligently could learn to code a given scenario, given description of a problem through a graph or through a flowchart or through a data flow diagram. Okay. In fact, the originating problem for the entire graph theory was Königsberg bridge problem. It was a very long-standing Prussian problem. Prussia is in old Russia now. Okay, Russia has got split now. You know that. This problem was solved by Euler in 1736. Let us understand what the problem means. In Prussia, there is a river. Okay, you can see this blue part in the diagram is the river, and it has created two islands here and here, two islands, and these are the two banks. So looking at this window, you can see that there are four land portions. One is this, the two banks, and then two islands. So all these land portions are interconnected by bridges. So this is bank A, this is bank B. We shall call this as island C and island D. So there are four land portions A, B, C, D, and there are bridges. So there is one bridge connecting A and C, another bridge connecting A and C, one more bridge connecting C and D like this, and fourth bridge connects D and A, fifth bridge connects B and C, sixth bridge connects B and C, and the seventh bridge connects B and D. So these are the bridges. Now what is the problem? The problem was this: start at any of the four land areas. One has got to start from any land portion, any A or B or C or D, and walk over every bridge once and only once, and then return to the start point. Suppose you start from bank A, you should come back to bank A, going through all bridges exactly once, not more than once. You should not walk on any bridge more than once. That was the problem. So this problem remained unsolved for many, many years. People tried and tried. Let us also try now. Let us see how Y graph becomes a solution to solve this problem. Okay, let us try to see that. Okay, so that's the Königsberg bridge problem. Now I shall give another diagramic representation to this. I shall make all the land as vertices. So one set of vertices I shall define. So A, B, C, D will become a set of vertices. And then all these bridges will become a set of edges. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7. That will become set of edges. So a graph is a set of vertices and edges. What is an edge? Edge B1 connects A and C. Edge B1 connects A and C. What do I mean by that? Edge B1, bridge B1, bridges establishes a relationship between the land A and C. So it is the relationship which connects A and C, or that A gets transmitted into C, or C gets transmitted into A. So lot of interpretations which all could be possible. So bridge does that interconnection. That is why it is relationship. That is why this is edge is a set of relationships, and relationships between what? Relationship between these vertices. Therefore, graph is a set of sets. It is a set of sets. So graph is a set mathematically, and it has got the two sets. One is set of vertices, another is set of edges. The size of vertex set is, let us say, n. In this particular problem, it is 4, and the let us say the size of set E is small e. The size of V is represented by small n, and this is small e, and in this case it is 7. So we generally call it as a graph made up of n vertices and e edges, and these are the relationships now. So B1 is a relationship between A and C. B2 is a relationship between A and C. B3 is a relationship between B and C. You can see in the picture. B4 is a relationship between B and C. B5 is a relationship between C and D. B6 is a relationship between A and D. B7 is a relationship between B and D. So now you should start imagining. I'm going very slowly here to emphasize and to make you think how this could be represented as a data structure. You should start evolving. Just getting into Google and copying some data structure has no meaning at all. But then how it has been evolved, is that the most efficient way of doing it? That's what we have got to start thinking. All right. So B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, they indicate the relationships. Now I shall represent it as a diagram. A, B, C, D are the vertices, and these are the edges, B1, B2, B3, B4, you can see. And therefore we have transformed this physical picture into a graph, okay, into a diagrammic representation of the graph. Whereas mathematically, graph is this. Graph is a set of vertices, B. Graph is a set of edges, E, where E is this, okay, the relationships. And those relationships become very clear in diagrammic representation. Okay, this is the first stage. The first stage is somehow bringing a physical problem into a graph representation. Here, problem, the scenario, physical scenario is represented as a graph. Now let us see what is the question that we have posed. The question that we have posed is, one can start from any land portion. It can be bank A or it can be bank B, or for that matter it can be even from this island C or from island D. And then if you start from island D, you should go through all these bridges once and only once, and finally come back to island D. It looks possible because there are 3 bridges. Even if you exit from one bridge and then you complete it finally and then come back to another bridge, it looks possible. But then there are only 3 bridges here. Let us use our logic. If I use this bridge to leave, and if I use this bridge to enter, then somewhere I have to use this bridge either to enter into D. So I have got to really enter because I have exited. Therefore, I have got to really enter. Then how do I go back? How do I go out? Because if I go out using 7, how do I come back to island D again? That is the problem. That is what has got to be solved. Okay, and let us see whether there can be a graph solution to this problem. So this is a graph of 4 vertices and 7 edges. So we have to, so the problem is, if I start from A, I should go through all bridges once and only once and come back to the start vertex A. That is the problem. So I have to find out one specific traversal, and this specific traversal is starting from a landmass and coming back to the same landmass. Therefore, it has got to be a circuit. It has got to be a closed path. It's not an open path. The open path is start from A, end in D. Start from D, end in B, or whatever it is. But it's a closed path. Start from A, come back to A. Therefore, it is a closed path. Can that be possible? Let us see that. Okay. All right. So this is the problem. This is the physical picture, and this is the graph representation of that. Now, in terms of graph theory, I shall restate the problem as follows. Start at any of the vertices A or B or C or D. Traverse over each edge exactly once. Return to the start vertex by a walk, not by a walk. Emphasize that you cannot jump. That's all. Okay. So, but then naturally graph traversal implies that you have got to walk through a edge only. Okay. So the problem, the physical problem is converted into a graph theoretic problem now. That's all. Okay. All right. So tracing the paths. So I got to traverse in the graph. In other words, can I transform the graph into another special graph? Let us see what is that special graph. Later it will be called as tree. Okay. Now this is the problem. And let me assume that I would like to traverse, let us say I shall start from A. I shall start from A. Now, if I start from A, I can leave A either choosing B1 or choosing B2. Isn't it? Either choosing B1. Let us say I will choose B1. If I choose B1, I will land up into C. Now, C, I can surely choose B2. If I choose B2, I will come back to A. Okay, that is not what is wanted. I should come back to A only towards the end. Okay, but anyhow, let me proceed now. So from C, I can choose B3. If I choose B3, I will go to B. If I from B, I can choose B7. If I choose B7, I will end up into D. Then if I at D, if I choose B5, I will end up into C. Then from B2, I will end up into A. Yes, I've started from A, I've come to A, but have I covered all the bridges? No, B1, B2, B3, B4 is not covered, B5, B6 is not covered, B7. So that is not what is wanted. So how do I solve the problem? However, keep it up, keep it apart, keep it aside. But in my attempt, all that I have done is I have converted this graph, the graph which described the problem, into another graph which possibly describes a solution. So have you understood now? That is the interesting point. So I should find some method of transforming this graph into this graph, because this is supposed to be a possible solution. Whether it is an acceptable solution or not an acceptable solution, is it an accurate solution or not an accurate solution, they are the questions to be solved later. But then one of the method of solving, a real method of solving, is the transformation of the graph from one state of the graph into another state of the graph. And here in this state, the interesting point is you don't have the circuits like this, the loops like this. You don't have that. See, nothing of that type. So it is all sort of open. You know, none of them are closed like this. And that representation later we will define it as a tree. Anyhow, what we are now going to do, we are going to backtrack. So from A to D again, for the purpose of including B6 I went. Okay, I got D. Then what? Then what do I do then? If I land it into D, then what do I do? See, D you have already landed because of B7, and because of B6. Then how do I go back to A? Then that is the question. So you will be backtracking to find an alternate solution. So you have already learnt in your algorithms class backtracking. So backtracking is simply production of a solution graph from a given original graph. So how many such graphs can be constructed? Can we automate that process? Can the code do the generation of these trees? That is all that we have got to think. Okay. Right. So this is one way. This is backtracking because I started from A, went into the depth, went into the depth, went into the depth, went into the depth. Therefore, this is depth first searching. Alternatively, we can think of branch and bound. Let's say I shall start from vertex A. So if I start from vertex A, there are three ways that I can exit. Look at the diagram. One, I can exit via B1, another I can exit via B2, and another I can exit via B6. So there are three ways of exiting, three ways of exiting. Look, this has got to be done from the graph. And what is the intermediate stage? There is a data structure. Okay. Now, the challenging is, can I put this image itself as an input? Okay. Can that itself become the input so that this input itself serves as what is called a graph data structure, a pictorial data structure from where this, the second part, is automatically constructed. This graph could be constructed, okay, without really requiring to define a stack or a queue or whatever it is as a data structure or any matrix or whatever, without even anything. If just this graph picture itself is given, and can that itself become a diagramic data structure? That is the type of work that you should do now. Okay, so A. So now, for starting from A, you have seen all three possibilities. See, you can just take A and then just take that part of the picture and attach that part of the picture. This is the part of the picture which gives you C, C, and D. C, C, and D. Now, if it is if you are on C, then what are the ways now? From C you can take B1, from C you can take B2, from C you can take B5, from C you can take B4, from C you can take B3. So, but if you take B1, if you take B1, B1 and B1 is repeated. So you are prevented. The rule of the game tells that you should go through the bridge once and only once. Therefore, this is not possible. It is bound. So you eliminate that. Okay, right? And then, so then I can take B2. Yes, that is admissible because this B1 is old one, B2 is a new one. There are two different bridges. It is admissible. One definitely can come back to a vertex more than once. But ultimately, finally, again, you should come back to A only in this problem because you have started from A now. So then you can take B3, which will take you to B. You can take B4, which will take you to B. You can take the B5, which will take you to D. And then how will you proceed? Similarly C, similarly D. You continue thinking in that way. Now, again, the question is, if I just give you this graph, your code should be able to develop this graph. And in that, one of them should at least be a solution that you start from A, go through all bridges, once and only once. Naturally, once and only once is taken care of by doing this binding exercise. So once and only once automatically is taken care of in the code. And now, see, these are once and only once. Once B1 once, B2 once, B1 once, B3 once, B1 once, B4 once. So they are all automatically taken care of. Can you find a solution? Can you find a solution or you cannot find a solution is not the question now. Euler later showed that there is no solution to this problem. Surely there is no solution. But then what I am trying to emphasize here is the representation of the physical problem as a graph abstraction, and even the solution has got to be another graph. So if I can do this, and if I can think of some mechanism of mapping this graph into this graph, that becomes the code, that becomes a solution. That is all. There is nothing so much important meaning over here. All right. So if you have to come back to your vertex, there must be an extra edge to do that traversal, isn't it? So go back to the problem. If I want to come back to this vertex, see, if I gone by B1, then if I need to come back to A, then there must be an extra edge to come. Because you have come there, you must exit also. There must be one more extra edge. Is it all right? So as many times you come to your vertex, so many times you should be able to leave that vertex and finally come back to that vertex. So if you had to come back to your vertex, there should be an extra edge to do the traversal. Other than the edge which we have already used to exit from that vertex. So you have got to use always a new edge other than the edge which we have already used. We must use always a new edge because we have got to go through every bridge once and only once, every edge once and only once. So now that's leave that problem aside, and that is the starting point of the entire graph theory. Now look at this pictorial representation. We will learn some terminologies which you might have picked up in your own way, but still for the sake of completion, we will redo that. If we come back to your vertex, still going through all edges, then we should be able to leave that vertex again. That's what I have already told you. So Euler provided the solution, and if you can do such a thing, then such a graph is called Euler's graph. Okay, so anyhow, G dash here what we have developed is circuitless representation. G contains circuit. So mapping from a circuit representation to a circuitless representation is the problem to be solved. Okay, so we thought about a traversal. Every edge you can now see is a relationship, as I already said, between two vertices, vertex I and vertex J. All right. Okay. So these vertices are called end vertices. In correctly, it's called a pair of end vertices. So E1 is a pair of end vertices V1, V2. E4 is a pair of end vertices V1 and V3. All right. Slowly I am coming towards the possibility of representing it in terms of the data structure. Okay. So various terms. Now we shall understand all these various terms with reference to this guy. One is self loop. So here you start from EA. You look at EA, the edge EA. It starts from vertex V4 and comes back to the same vertex V4. That is the self loop. Pendant edge. Pendant edge. This is E7 is a pendant edge because it starts from V3, goes back to V5, traversing across E7, but you cannot leave V5, so it is a termination. An edge which causes a termination is called a pendant edge, and the edge which is a terminal is called a pendant vertex. Pendant vertex. All right. So now this vertex you can see here V6. This is another vertex V6. It is not at all connected. Okay. It is just isolated. Such a vertex which is not at all connected with any edge is called an isolated vertex. So you can see here edge G1 and edge G2. They are between the same end vertices V1 and V2. They are called the parallel edges. Parallel edges. You can see this set of edges E1 and then E3, or E4 and then E6, or you can see E5 and E7. These are called series edges. All right. Then what is a path? Path is the sequence of traversal edges. Sequence of traversal edges starting from one vertex, ending up to another vertex. Now let us see. I want to move from V1 to V5. All right. If I want to move from V1 to V5, just look at it. You know, I start from V1, go to E1, then come to V2. All right, and then take up E5, come to V3, and then take up E4, go back to V1, and then take up E3, come to V4, and then take up E6, come to V3, and then take up E7, go to V5. That also makes you to reach V5 only. But in the process, I have gone back to V1 several times. Okay. So such a traversal is called a walk. Such a traversal is called a walk. In a walk, you can re-enter any vertex more than once. You can re-enter any vertex more than once. But in a path, it is not possible. So re-entry into any vertex more than once is also not possible. See, entering through an edge once and only once is one problem, and at the same time going through the vertex once and only once is also another problem. So you start from a vertex v1 and end up into v5. One possible way is, let us say, e1 and then e5 and then e7. Another possible way could be v1 and then v4 and then v3 and v5. So these are all paths, and this is also a path. This is also a path, and this path has got only two edges, and possibly it could be the shortest path between v1 v5 in terms of number of edges. Okay, so hope I'm very clear that the difference between path and walk should be very well understood. Walk is a process of touching the vertices more than once because of different possible traversal into that vertex because of the edges connected to that vertex. Now, what is a closed walk? Just now we defined, when we defined the problem of Königsberg Bridge, that you start from the vertex, end in the same vertex, start from v1, come back to v1 after satisfying certain condition. That is what it's a closed walk. And what is the difference between closed walk and circuit? A closed path, what is a path? In path, no other vertex should be visited more than once also. Another condition is no vertex should be visited more than once. Then it is called a circuit. In a closed walk, any other vertex could be visited more than once en route while coming back to the original vertex. That's a closed walk. But circuit is the one where you will not be visiting any vertex more than once. So that is a circuit. Okay. All right. So these terminologies are clear now. Self loop, pendant edge, pendant vertex, isolated vertex, parallel edges, series edges, path, walk, closed walk, and circuit. Okay, I haven't put it them in the in my slides. You have got to fill up that. Now, what is a simple graph? A simple graph, for the purpose of simplicity, we shall consider only those graphs which will not have parallel edges, which will not have self loops. The graphs which do not have parallel edges, which do not have self loops, are called simple graphs. They are very, very simple graphs. In fact, mathematicians would love to call it as linear graphs. Later, you may understand the reason why they are called linear graphs, because any edge which is a single edge between any two vertices can be always drawn in diagram as a line. All right, so you can always think of straight lines connecting the two vertices. That can happen if and only if there is only one edge between any two vertices, not parallel edges. If there are two parallel edges, one has got to have a curved representation. Therefore, you remove parallel edges, you remove self loop. Self loop has got to be essentially a curve. You remove parallel edges, you remove self loop, then such a graph will become a simple graph. And mathematically, it is also called a linear graph. So now, in contrast to simple graph, if a graph can contain parallel edges, can contain self loops, then we call it as a general graph. It can be called very generic. For generic purposes, we will use that general graph. Okay. So graph, let us consider this picture. All right. Again, this diagram again. Consider the graph. This graph has got 5 vertices and 6 edges. All right. And it is a simple graph because I have not considered parallel edges. I have not considered self loops. I have not considered the isolated vertex. But of course, I have considered a pendant vertex because it is still connected. It is a connected graph. So one can read the graph. Now, let me see how to read this graph. Okay. So my next part is a slow transition into representation of the graph. Okay. Let's see how we can read the graph. Is that visible or is that visible? Okay, let's go. So let's see how to read the graph. One can read the graph in the following way. See that I have put that read in the within the quote marks. Consider a vertex. You just consider a vertex, any vertex. Okay, consider any vertex. Find out the edges connected to this vertex. Let us see. I consider V1. Find out the edges which are connected to V1. E5 is connected, E1 is connected. All right. Find out V4. E5 is connected, E2 is connected, E4 is connected, E6 is connected. So, in other words, technically, find out the edges incident on that vertex. Okay, find out the edges incident on that vertex. So, on V4, E5, E2, E4, and E6 are incident. Let me see that. So, for instance, V1 has the incidences of E1 and E5. V2 has E1, E2, E3 incident upon V2. E4 and E3 are incident upon V3. E5, E2, E4, E6 are incident upon V4. And on V5, only E6 is incident. Okay. Okay. One step further, simple, very simple. Consider V4, E5, E2, E4, E6 are incident. Now let me see. Here, if I write down E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6 and write down V4 and then make it a 0, 1 matrix like this. So in this, E1 is not present, so 0. E2 is present, there is 1. E3 is not present, 0. E4 is present, 1. E5 is present, 1. And E6 is present, 1. Therefore, the incidence for V4 becomes a 1 into 6 representation. What is 6? 6 is the total number of edges present in the graph. And out of the total number of edges present in the graph, zeros represent non-present edges and ones represent edges which are incident upon this vertex. Is it okay? Good. Therefore, it is a simple 0, 1 representation. Okay, so you call it as a vector. Okay, so it is a vector of incidence. All right, it is a vector. It has got a finite length. The length is finite. Of course, the incidence is not finite, but the length of representation is finite. Okay, one cross 6 representation. So for V2, V2 has incidences E1, E2, E3. So E1, E2, E3, whereas E4, E5, E6 are not present at all. All right. So it has got a 1 into 6 representation. Okay. So V4 has 1 into 6 representation. So similarly, V1 has 1 into 6 representation. V2 has 1 into 6, 1 into 6, 1 into 6, 1 into 6. And putting all of them together, I can write down a 2D representation. I can merge all such 5 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1 into 6 representation, giving a overall 5 cross 6 matrix. Okay, a 2D matrix, a overall 5 cross 6 matrix. So this is V1. All right, what did I do? I picked up V1 and found out which are the edges incident. I picked up V2, found out which are the edges which are incident. V3, V4 and V5. That becomes a representation. All right. So that becomes, now you think of whatever the way you would like to represent. You think of whatever the data structure. Now, of course, assignments I come little later, but now just you understand that this is the graph representation. Now, what have we considered here? The edges incident on a very vertex. Therefore, this is called an incidence matrix and is represented as A. A stands for incidence matrix. So this matrix scanned horizontally. You remember I scanned it horizontally, right? So that this horizontal scanning would give me the edges which are incident on a particular vertex. So every horizontal scanning represents the incidence of edges on a vertex. So this matrix scanned horizontally lists the edges incident on a vertex. Therefore, it is called incident matrix. Size of this matrix is, there are n vertices, so there must be n rows, and there are e edges, there must be e number of columns. So it is vertex edge incident matrix. Vertex edge incidence matrix. Is that clear? I hope that we should every Aij where I goes from 1 to n, the rows corresponding to vertices, j goes from 1 to e, columns corresponding to edges. Okay, so Aij is 1, any Aij is 1 if ith vertex has that jth edge incident on it. Otherwise, it is 0. That is all. Okay, all right. Okay, now how did I construct that matrix? I constructed previously as row-wise construction. I took every vertex and tried to find out the edges which are incident on that vertex. Can I construct the same matrix column-wise? Yes, I can construct. How to construct column-wise? Take any edge, E1, take any edge E2, and if you take an edge E2, every edge should have two end vertices, V2 and V4. Should have two end vertices, V2 and V4. So for column-wise construction, for row-wise construction, recall you considered a vertex. Your focus, starting focus was upon a vertex. But to construct the same matrix column-wise, your attention will be towards an edge. So you start with an edge. So the edge shall contain two end vertices. All right. Once it contains the two end vertices, you find out those two end vertices. All right. Which are the two end vertices? For instance, E1, you look at E1, end vertices are V1, V2. Also, E1 is naturally V2, V1, you know, because it does not have a direction. Or I don't tell it does not have direction. It is bidirectional. It is bidirectional. Okay. So take E2, which is E2 is V2, V4. All right. Like that, E6 is V4, V5. Okay. These are the relationships. You recall that we called the edges as the representatives of relationships, right? Now, each edge may be put in a column representation. Now I will see that. See, edge G1, you call is incident is connecting V1 and V2. Is the relationship between the two end vertices V1 and V2. So edge G1 connects V1 and V2. So V1 is 1, V2 is 1. So it doesn't connect V3. It doesn't connect V4. It does not connect V5. Yet G2 is a relationship between V2 and V4. V2 is 1 and oh, I'm sorry, it is incorrect. V4 should have been 1. Okay, it is wrong. V4 should have been 1. So the matrix is 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. It is wrong. Okay, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Right? This is column representation. How many such columns are there? As many edges are there. Merge them and you will get the same matrix. Merge them, you will get the same matrix. Okay. So this matrix, incidence matrix, can be constructed vertex wise, in which case horizontal rows will get created first, or can be constructed edge wise, in which case every column gets filled up. The interesting point is every column should have exactly 2 ones, not more than 2 ones, because every edge connects only 2 end vertices. All right, that is a self-validation of your construction also. If the matrix is constructed automatically, the validation can also be built in to see that every every column should have exactly 2 ones. But that is not true when you go through the rows, because rows will contain the number of edges which are incident on that particular vertex. Is it all right? Okay, so combining all the 6 columns will give back to the matrix. So There are two methods of constructing this matrix. I am emphasizing that there are two methods to construct the matrix, which definitely is a question for the assignment, that given a graph diagram, can you automate the process of constructing these matrices? Okay, all right, it should be very automatic. How automatic can you do it? What I'm telling is this: you should not enter this matrix by yourself. There must be an interface, there must be a questionnaire in between, and that questionnaire should just take the answer yes or no as the input, 0 or 1 as the input, and ultimately you should construct the matrix. There are two methods: either you go vertex wise or you go row wise, that is edge wise, and you construct. Therefore, given the diagram, write an interface which automatically constructs this matrix. And there are two approaches. Okay, this is assignment number 1. Okay, okay, all right. I think I should go to the assignment number 2. Assignment number 2 is little more automation. This graph diagram is drawn on a piece of paper. All right. All of you have your mobiles, and all mobiles have cameras today. All right. Okay. Take a picture of this graph diagram that you have drawn. And straight from the diagram, you should be able to construct this matrix. Okay. Bit of image processing or bit of graphics, call whatever. You have already done all these things. Therefore, you got to do some traversal. Do graphics, or do image processing, or do traversal. Do whatever you like to, but then you should construct this matrix. Is it okay? So, assignment number 2 is, I give a picture, you have drawn the picture. Maybe you have drawn this picture on a white paper, and surely you have drawn this picture using a black ink pen, so that the contrast of your image will be very good, and ensure that there is no noise. But now this diagram, naturally you can keep the diagram picture in the picture mode itself, picture format itself, but it takes a lot of memory. Now, can I just get this matrix straight from that picture, straight from that, whatever the JPG file or whatever the file, okay, right from that. So you have to either try your graphics trick or try your image processing trick, or whatever you like to do, you do it. Do it. Okay, right? Good. And then you should understand that some scribbling has been done, like V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, E1, E2. Some scribbling has been done, and now you should understand little more ticklish issue, that they're all hand scribed, handwritten. Okay, so you have got to do the recognition of those labels also, because when you create this matrix, the same labels as given here should get entered. It is not some other label that you give. Okay, you should recognize. If I have written it as A, then you should call it as A only. If I have written it as V alpha, then you should call it as V alpha only. So some work on character recognition also. All right. Okay. So this is the second assignment. Well, remember that now one person is not going to solve the problem. It is a batch of 4 members. All right. Therefore, you can assign the problem of recognizing. It is well written here. Imagine E2 has been written here, and imagine E5 also somebody has written inside only, inside, not outside like this. Then you have to recognize that E2 represents this edge and E5 represents this edge. Is it all right? So suppose E5 has been written inside somewhere here and E2 is somewhere here. You have to intelligently resolve that issue. So all these points have got to be done. I'm not teaching the third semester. I'm not teaching second semester graph theory. I'm not teaching the graph theory for the entry level boy who does programming. I'm teaching graph theory at a very advanced level. Therefore, these are the things which I want you to do. It is intelligent computing. It is machine learning also, because machine also on the run should resolve that this E2 is representing V2 and V4, and all this intelligence has got to get into while constructing the data structure. So the picture structure, the pictorial representation should become a data structure. Is it okay? Right. Had there been an interactive class, I would have seen your faces and I would have seen that how enthusiastic you would have been thinking about this problem, that you would have challenged me that you would complete the coding, you would complete everything today itself, and tomorrow you would submit the assignment. But then I'm not able to enjoy such a situation because neither you are in this campus nor am I with every one of you sitting exactly across your desk to find out your body language. But that's assignment number 2. Now, assignment number 3 is as follows. You are going to draw the same picture on a ruled exercise, on a ruled page, a page which contains the rules, the lines. You understand that? Your exercise book. All right. Surely those lines are already present, and these lines are drawn by you. These lines are drawn by you. Is it okay? The lines which are present already in your background could also be lines like this, connecting like this, connecting like this. All right. When you draw a graph, the vertices V1, V2, V3 will not be circles like this. They're just small vertices, small points. Okay, they're not circles. Dr. Javed, to make it very explicitly visible to you, he has made it as a circle, but it is not a circle. All right. So in fact, V1 will not be written inside, it will be written outside, okay, with a point. So now there is every danger that this line, the background line in your exercise, in your notebook, can also be interpreted as an edge, and your machine learning algorithm may identify a vertex here because of that edge, and may identify a vertex here also, and it is a wrong interpretation. So, interesting question. This is assignment number 3. Slightly difficult, not really difficult. You are all very smart guys. Okay, so this picture, which is drawn in some different color, maybe black color, on a ruled notebook, on a ruled page, which is also black lines, which are also black lines, you have got to eliminate these undesired background lines before you construct this matrix. Once you eliminate those background lines, problem number 2 constructs this matrix. And how to construct the matrix? Problem number 1 is already there. How to construct the matrix? See how it becomes a group work. All right. So problem number 1, problem number 2, and problem number 3 as 3 assignments are now available, and all these are to construct an incidence matrix. Is that okay? Good. That sounds good. All right. So this is one set of assignments. Now I shall uh, uh, Javed. Javed. Ah, okay. Shall we continue? Yes. Okay. So we shall complete this. There is one more possible way to represent the graph. All right. This is adjacency matrix. Till now I spoke about incidence matrix. Now it is adjacency matrix. Till now when I spoke about incidence matrix, it was a n cross e matrix. So it was a rectangular matrix. Now this is an adjacency matrix, which is a square matrix. It is n cross n matrix. That is also called a connection matrix or a proximity matrix. So it is represented by x, n cross n, which is xij. All right, where I is 1 to n and j is also 1 to n. So xij is equal to 1 if there is an edge between ith and jth vertices. That's all. If it is between ith and jth vertices, there is an edge. Okay. All right. So recall that was a graph which we had, an incidence matrix. Incidence matrix. Sorry, what is this? This is there is something wrong. This must have been x 5 cross 5 matrix. It is not a 5 cross 6. It is x 5 cross 5 matrix. So this x 5 cross 5 matrix. See, there is a 1 here. The 1 is v1 v2. That 1 is v1 v2. Okay, and v1 v2 has a name e1. But in this representation, you have lost that name. You have lost that label. But you have only one. But if you want to really label it as e1, how will you do that? Where will you do that? Recollect, in the incidence matrix, that label was also known to you, E1. The name of that edge was also known, E1, E2, E5. The name of the edge was known. Whereas in this matrix, the connection matrix, X matrix, first of all, I'm sorry, this is wrong. It is not A. Okay, it is X and it is not 5 cross 6. It is block copying. The block copying made by Dr. Javed. It must have been X 5 cross 5 matrix. Okay, and every xij is either a 0 or a 1, but this 1 does not represent whether it is E1 or E2 or E3. Okay, right. Well, suddenly you may tell me, sir, then you enter it as E1 only. Why do you enter it as 1 here? Accepted, very well accepted. But the point is, once you write it as a E1, the beauty of the matrix as a 0 1 is lost. Okay, the one binary matrix nature is lost. The whole matrix becomes a string. It becomes a string, you know, E1, E2, E3, etc. And then this matrix, you have seen that it is a symmetric matrix. If there is V1 to V2 here 1 and V2 to V1 should also be 1 because same edge connects, E1 connects. All right, so you would be writing E1 twice. All right, so that is another problem. Now, question number 1. So this is assignment number 4. Assignment number 4 is, how do you construct this matrix? Okay, which is repetition of question number 1, assignment number 1. So in assignment number 1, you recall, I asked you to construct incidence matrix. Now I'm asking you to construct adjacency matrix. All right. Recall, in constructing the incidence matrix, I asked you to construct it reading vertex wise. Then I asked you to construct reading edge wise. So there are two approaches. Now you adapt both the approaches, two approaches, and how will you construct? How will the matrix get filled up if you start with vertex wise reading? How will this matrix gets filled up if you start edgewise reading? So I don't want this, I don't want this matrix to be shown to me. I want how this matrix gets filled up. All right. How will the entries be? Which is the first entry? Which is the second entry? How does it happen? Does it look like random happening when you start filling the edges? This is question number 1. I mean, question number 4, assignment number 4. All right. Now, assignment number 5 is, I have lost the beauty of the labels of the edges here in this matrix. Whereas in the incidence matrix, still I have got the advantage of finding out which edge is that. Okay, because the labels are available on the top, E1, E2, E3, E4, etc. How will you tell me what is the name of this edge? Is it E1, E2, E3, E4? How will you tell? Do you want to have a linked structure to that where it gives 1? And the same question, you should see that it is diagonally symmetric matrix, and therefore can you have a refined representation of this matrix, which is only a triangular portion, which can only be a triangular portion, either upper triangular portion or a lower triangular portion, because other portion is mirror reflection, symmetric. Therefore, can I have a reduced triangular representation of this adjacency matrix? Is it okay? Right? This is question number 6. Okay, 6 is it? No, I think 3, 4, 5. Question number 5 only. Okay, so question number 5 should consist of 2 components. 1, reduced representation of the square matrix. 2, the beauty which is lost, the advantage which is lost, like the labels of the edges. The label of edges are lost. I want to get that. I want to even write down the labels of the edges also, include the labels of the edges also in the adjacency matrix. This is question number 5, both put together. Question number 6, repetition. Your question, whatever the question number 2 I had given, but now to construct the adjacency matrix, like given a diagram, given a picture, and you have scanned that picture. You have taken a photo of this picture using your mobile camera, or you have got a scanner and you have scanned that picture. And then how will you construct the adjacency matrix? And the next question, that's question number 7, is repetition of question number 3, that the graph is drawn on a ruled background, on a line background, and how will you eliminate those lines and construct this matrix? Is it all right? So these 7 assignments. Okay, now one more interesting assignment, that if I give incidence matrix, can you automatically construct an adjacency matrix? Or if I give adjacency matrix, can you automatically construct an incidence matrix? All right. So that's the next assignment, the 8th assignment. So the 8th assignment is, given one matrix, design an algorithm to construct the other matrix, and vice versa, Given any matrix, other matrix should be constructed, and vice versa. Is it all right? These are the questions, right? Okay. Now, you have, how many of you are there? 12 batches, right? 12 batches. I have given now 8 questions. 8 questions. So 4 more questions, right? Okay. Okay. Look at this matrix, or maybe I go back to incidence matrix. Look at this matrix. Okay. So when you look at this matrix, you can see a strings of 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. So totally the size is 5 cross 6. Can I think of compressed representation of this matrix? For example, in this matrix I have only 6 edges. All right. I mean, this is a very specific solution that I am trying to give you. It's not a generic solution, but when I give you an assignment, you must try to give me a very generic solution. All right. So I draw a line here. Is it okay? If I draw a line here, there are 3 edges here and there are 3 edges here. All right. So this is a string 1, 0, 0. Is it all right? This is string 1, 0, 0 here. All right. And here is a string 0, 1, 0. Use your 8421, I mean 421 code. Now it is a 421 because it's a 3-digit 421 code. Its decimal value is 4. All right. And the decimal value of this is 2. Can I write V1 as 42? Just 42. All right. It is no doubt. It is not a 0-1 matrix, but it becomes a decimal representation. In 0-1 matrix, only 2 symbols are used, 0 and 1. But here, once you make it decimal, how many symbols you are using? 10 symbols you are using, 0 to 9, 10 symbols you are using. So the number of symbols rise, no doubt. But look at the compressed representation of the matrix possible. I write V1 as 42. 4 is 1, 0, 0. It can be expanded, decompressed as 1, 0, 0. 2 can be decompressed as 0, 1, 0 at any point of time. So it is reversible. Is it all right? So can I do that? V1 as 4, 2. Here look at this. V2 is 7, 4, 2, 1, 7. And V2 is 0, 7, 0. This is 7, 0. This is 4, 2. This is 7, 0. This is 1 and 4. This is 1 and 4. All right. So can I make some sort of representation like this and automatically split the entire row and represent it as a sequence of hexadecimal coding in general? Because if you take 4 bits, then it will be 8421 and it becomes a hexadecimal coding or octal coding. Do whatever, try both of them, octal coding and hexadecimal coding. So hexadecimal coding of incidence matrix, octal coding of incidence matrix. Similarly, hexadecimal coding and octal coding of even the adjacency matrix. All right. So how much size reduction that you can get? How much size reduction that you can get? But it involves reconstruction of 0-1 matrix. What is the overhead in reconstructing the full 0-1 matrix? How much time would you spend in reconstructing the matrix? That is assignment number 9. Is it okay? Assignment number 9. Now assignment number 10. Interesting. Here again. Look here. It's 1. And look here. It is a run length of 0. 1 run length of zeros. Okay. And look here. 1 run length of 1s. 1 run length of 0. And note these zeros. 1, 2, 3. And run length continues here. See. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Run length continues. All right. I don't know whether you're done image processing. Even if you're not done, absolutely no problem. So you can see, you can find out what is run length compression. Now run length compression can be done too. One on horizontal runs, two on vertical runs. By the way, even the previous problem of hexa coding or octal coding could be done even column wise. Not only coding row wise, coding could be column wise also, which has got to be included in that assignment itself. Recall, each batch has got 4 members, and recall, only one problem has got to be solved by each team. And recall, all of you should collect all the material, and that is the real material on all varieties of problems that could be possible with the matrix construction. That is all. Okay, and that becomes a real storehouse. Okay, and you are teaching your peers. You are amongst yourselves learning. In the process, I am learning because I am going to hear from you the different varieties of solutions that you are going to create. Okay, so now come to the next problem. This next problem is not coding problem. This problem is run length compression. Can I do the run length compression on this? Okay, and similarly, run length compression could be on columns also. So, and this has got to be repeated either on incidence matrix or on adjacency matrix. What's the problem number now? You have, how many problems I have given now? Okay, 10 problems are there. Now 2 more problems because you are 12 in number. Okay, very interesting problem. I give you incidence matrix. From where did you get this incidence matrix? Recall, from this diagram, from this graph diagram, you got the graph matrix. Now I will give you a graphics question. I will give you this matrix. Can you draw this diagram? Okay. So one question is, given an incidence matrix, 0, 1 incidence matrix, draw the diagram. Draw the graph diagram. And the last question, given the adjacency matrix, draw the graph diagram. Is it okay? Good. That's all. So there are 12 questions. Today itself, by evening, you will get the mail, which problem is assigned to which batch and which are the batches, etc. You will get the mail, and you take 10 days to do this coding. The whole cycle, one cycle is now fully over. That's all. But remember, at the end of the day, what is that you have done? You have considered only simple graphs, no parallel edges, and no self loops, nothing. All right, you have considered only simple graphs, and for that, on that, I have given you 12 assignments, 12 problems, and we have come to 2 different representations. One is incidence representation, another is adjacency representation. From this representation, what can be the efficient data structure is up to you. You are all, I assume that you are all experts on the type of data structures that you incorporate, but then the medium is this matrix representation. Okay, good. Thank you very much for the day. And we have started off. First cycle is done, and the next cycle will definitely go with some more complications. The complications are, what if they are not simple graphs? What if when they are general graphs? Okay. All right. That will be the end of the first cycle. We shall stop at this particular point. Okay. All right. At this particular point, we just stop now. Right. Okay. Good. We shall take up the remaining from the next. In the next class, Dr. Javed will let you know when will be the next class, and the next class is only after you successfully complete this first assignment. It starts today. It starts from now. Okay. Thank you very much.